So this afternoon, what I wanted to do was to give a brief introduction to the EMA events calendar. My name is David Wood. I'm the programs director for EMA. And what we are going to be looking at is our public-facing events calendar, which of course is available to see by anyone on the internet, and our members, organization members, and personal student household members may all record their events on that website. And so I want to run through the process and give a little example of how it works and sort of how we have it intended to work. And then I'll have a little time for questions at the end. And I'm going to go ahead and spotlight myself for everybody, but I'm going to share my screen. And I'm sure everybody recognizes the homepage of EMA. And the first thing you're going to do, of course, is log in. And I'm already logged in using our faithful Johann Sebastian Bach login, which allows us to see everything the way that a member user would see the website. So there are several ways that we can get to the add an event feature on the website. One is to simply go to the events calendar using this drop-down menu from news and events. And from here, you could click this little blue bar at the top. Another way, once you're logged in, is to click on your profile, and then you can actually, oh, disappeared. You can actually go to, and I don't know why it's not wanting me to stay there. You can click on your events, which takes you to your events. The page says my events for some reason right now, probably due to a new update. But this would be where any events that you have submitted will appear, so that you can edit them or delete them as necessary. You can also find those events by going to the member directory, which is under people and about EMA. And when you go to your own directory, you can see what events are associated with the account that you submitted those events for. So if it's for an organization, you find your organization profile in the organization directory, then you can see all of the events that have been added. And if you're an individual personal student or household member, you can find it underneath there. But once you've come to this page, you can either click this on the top, or actually on the My Events page or the Your Events page, there's a little Add New button. And we'll just click that. And this is how you submit an event. So we are just going to run through this. And what I'm going to be discussing are the ways that we feel that things are the most descriptive and make it the easiest for visitors to the events calendar can really know upfront what they're getting into when they start. So when you put in the event, it's always great to put the event title. I think it's also a great idea, if you can, if you would like, to go ahead and put the name of your organization or the ensemble that's performing that. So if you're going to add in here, you can see previous versions of this, but and if in this test event, I would say EMA presents, and then the event title, and whatever you want to call your event title, or some sort of way that in the title we can have a better idea of who's starting it. In the events description, this is just a rich text editor, so you can put whatever you want in here in terms of text. You can bold items like you would in any other thing. You can add links within there, which can be handy if outside of the areas for links that are available in there. There are a few other items. If you use this little toggle toolbar, you can pull some other options down. So if you would like to add some text color, you can change the color of your text if you'd like, and all of these additional areas. Please note there is not an area in this particular place for adding an image. There's a specific spot for adding your image that would go with this. But you can put links and you can format how you'd like to align. You can use bulleted lists. If you know and you need to include some sort of quote and you want it to look a little fancy, there's a little block quote thing, and then on the other end it will sort of separate it from everything else and put it into a different formatting. So you can feel free to play around with as you need to. So your event description would go in here. Choosing the date and time. The first thing I'll note over here, because a lot of people can miss it, and if you're not thinking about it, but anytime you see like a little pencil next to something in most forms, that means that it's an editable field. And it doesn't immediately appear, but if you see that when I go over this time zone and it changes to the hand, that means this is actually an editable field. And so I can pull this down and I can choose where I want or someplace close. So if I was on the West Coast and let's say I wanted to say that I wanted to, maybe I am in Vancouver or I'm just in Pacific time or something like that, I can choose that. And now that will present it in that time zone when you put your event on the calendar. So if you are someone on the Pacific coast of North America, you don't need to be doing the math and say that it's 4 hours ahead or 3 hours ahead in Eastern time and leaving it that. You can identify where. Now, of course, not every single city is located in here, so it's best to just find the closest to you. The town where I am in sort of East Central Kansas is not on there, but if I choose Chicago, it's my time zone, so that would work. Then choosing the date is just as simple as using this little calendar and choosing your date. And then the same with the time, making sure, please note that the default at the beginning is to have it be an 8-hour event that goes from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so you'll want to adjust both of those. So if this is an evening concert, I'm just changing this here to show that. And if I want to say that it's an hour long, I represent it this way. And you can start seeing the way that this will display, just to double check. This event is at from 7:30 to 8:30 on September the 14th, or any day that I would like that to be. Now, the events calendar is really designed for time-specific events. So that means a one-time concert or a series, and we'll talk about that, or a premiere of a video or some kind of premiere, but it is not best used for showing that, say, an on-demand event is available for a month at a time. One of the reasons why that is that when we start having those, it sort of clogs up the rest of the calendar because it wants to show those recurring events on the top, even though they're not necessarily a recurring sort of a time-sensitive event. So we say that, and we hold to, and as we review the pieces that are coming in and just double checking them when they're going on the calendar, one of the things that we make sure is that it's not extended period, particularly ones that run from, say, 7:30 to 8:30, but the day is a whole month away or something like that. So if you have an event or a premiere or something like that, then I would recommend, and we suggest that you put the premiere time, maybe it's the length of the concert for that premiere time, and then in your description, that's a great place to say this is available for however long. And then what we strongly suggest is that you use the press release part of the website to talk about your ongoing and your ongoing on-demand things, and there are ways of denoting that so that people can look up just online parts or online events and doing that. So one-time events, or if you have something on a recurring basis where it is a time-sensitive event, but let's say that this is going to happen more than one time, what I can do here is after I put the time in here, I can say however I want my event series. So if it's going to be a weekly series and Right now it's defaulting me to Tuesdays because the first event that I selected here, it was a Tuesday. So it said, it's helping me think here. It's saying, do you want this to repeat on the same day of the week? And if I want to, I can do that. Or if I say, actually, I want it to repeat on Tuesday and Thursday, and you can sort of see this as I go along, it starts to define this more and more. So this would appear every Tuesday and Thursday, beginning on September 28th at 7:30. And I can say I want it at the same time, or I can choose a different time if I want it a different time. And you can define what your repetition is going to be. It could be a monthly event. It can be a daily event. This is what we find when you maybe have a concert event that's four concerts over a weekend or something. Then that works. You say every single day, and then you can say at a different time if you need to. There are some limitations. It's a little hard when you have it at multiple times over a short period of time in terms of getting everything set up. And sometimes it actually gets to be easier just to create a separate event rather than have it as part of the series if it's changing venue and it's changing time and those types of things. But you can change all of these. If it's a weekly recurrence or an ongoing thing for a week or something, you then can just choose how soon you would like that repeat to end. So if I just wanted that to go Tuesdays and Thursdays for a couple of weeks, then now I have that. And then every week that begins 8 a.m. on Tuesday, I want the same time. 7 p.m. on Tuesday and Thursday, repeating until October 14th. And then that would add more. I can add more in here. And this is where I can do one-time changes. So this is, if it's at the same venue especially, you could go in here and say, oh, it's happening that time, but also I'm going to have one special offering that's going to be on a Sunday afternoon, and I could choose it to a different time if I want that to happen. So now I have an additional event that's happening at a separate time outside of that series, and you can do many of those. If you're having this weekly or some kind of repetition, but say the week of Thanksgiving in the United States or in Canada, and you're in your Thanksgiving week, and that you're going to skip that week, you can add in exclusions, and you can say, I would like my exclusions, and use the same sort of filter, and you just say what day you would like that exclusion to be on. So if I was having this repeating every single week and I just said, actually, I don't want it to be on October the 5th, then that adds in that exclusion. So it won't appear on that day. So you're able to really define these event series. One of the reasons why these series, when you can use them, is really handy is that this same description goes for everything. So you don't have to re-input all of that information. And if you go in and edit the series, you can change that information. And you're also able to break things out of a series if necessary. So I'm going to leave those in here, and we'll check in on those in a minute. And then you can also choose for the recurrences if you need to put a note in there as to anything that has to do with the recurrence. You can add that in that description. So we have the events image size or image field up to 8 megabytes. These are JPEGs, PNG, and GIFs, and then you just click and you find your image that you would like, and I'll just take a recent image that we used. It doesn't show you this. It doesn't show you a preview when you're first selecting it. If for some reason it looks strange after, we'll talk about how to go back in and edit it, but it doesn't actually show a preview. It just tells you the name of the file that you've selected. And you can choose one file, and really any size is acceptable in terms of aspect ratio, portrait or landscape, those types of things, as long as it's no bigger than 8 megabytes in size. The events categories are in here, and there are several different options. Concerts, early music month events, which are during March. There are a few that are under here that are just for in-house, but there's no way for us to hide those. So we ask that you kind of just avoid those as necessary, although there are versions of some of those. Festivals, other, just in case it doesn't fit into any of these categories for one-off things. Podcast and video premieres. So I talked about if you're using the event calendar to say, here's our podcast or video premiere, you can actually identify that so people know that that's how it's happening. Webinar, web meeting, workshop, and you can also choose multiple. So if it's, let's say it's a concert, and then it's also part of a festival, you could add those in. So you can choose the categories that make the most sense to you. Now here's a little section. This is part of a new update, and I'm trying to ask the company, we're going to have to do some coding to actually remove this tags, because the problem with the tags in this new update is that it has cross-pollinated the events tags with all of the tags for all of the posts on our website, and it gets to be a big mess. Right now, we've sort of refined them to just a handful that seem to be kind of additional things beyond categories to help people kind of sort by era, or if they're instrumental or vocal or choral, those types of things. But as I'll show you when we get to it, we actually don't have, the tags are less helpful than they seem. So I would, for now, if you would like to use some of those tags that we've included, you can feel free, but I think at some point in the near future that section is going to disappear, because it actually ends up being in many ways more harm than good. Virtual events. Now, here's the thing, we haven't gotten to the place. So if it is a virtual event, then you can configure those on their own. And you can decide whether or not it's going to be a virtual or hybrid. And that's going to put a little note on the actual event to let people know that. If it is going to be a premiered video, then you can put in that URL. So if you have the scheduled video link, say on YouTube or something like that, you can put that in there. If it's YouTube Live, you don't want to use ours. You would use your own live channel, whatever your YouTube Live channel, and then also for Zoom, you would want to, and we'll have to take that off because it's trying to let you use our Zoom, or maybe that's just me. But then you can also identify those. If it's a video stream premiere, the nice thing is that if you put in that scheduled video link, it will actually load it in the bottom of your event, and people could watch it straight from the event. They don't have to go to YouTube. You can embed the video by clicking that. You can decide what you want the little watch button, if you want them to go to your Vimeo or YouTube or whatever, if you'd rather them go to it rather than embed it, you can change that. You could say watch the premiere, or something like that. You can just change the label on that, and then you can have the video show up either as soon as you publish it or when the event starts. So some people don't want the video to be up there yet, especially if they didn't schedule it, if they've already sort of loaded it to their website, but they're keeping it private for now, but it's not a scheduled premiere. Then you could still put the link in there and just click when the event starts, and when the event starts, then that embedded video will show up. So you've got some choices. And then we've got a little weird thing that's over top of this, but you want to show it to either everyone or logged in users, but I don't know that anybody has ever used that. There's a thing that's over the top of this for some reason right now. I think pretty much everybody likes it to be everyone and not just EMA members. But I suppose if you wanted to make it just for EMA members to view on the website, you could do that. And then adding the label, you can have that show on your event page and show on the calendar view. So if you want to make sure that it says virtual or hybrid, you can select those. You can toggle those off or on as needed. And then also notice virtual events would be indexed on Google as online events. So when you set up this for your online event, your hybrid event, it helps the search function through Google, because Google is searching all of these, and because they're being created sort of as a post. And so web crawlers are going to be noting that these are happening. And so it will help other people outside of those visiting the events calendar to find your event on the calendar if you're using this. So that is for virtual events. And what we see sometimes is that people will have a virtual event and they might not use this section, and instead they go down here and they put Zoom in their venue. But we prefer that the venues be restricted to physical spaces because of the way it creates the viewing experience on the front end. So a venue should be a physical location. And you can either choose from previously created venues, or you can create your own if it's not found in here. So if it's not found, I can just begin typing in here, or I can start searching through here. Now, one thing that's a little bit tricky, being that we have events that are being submitted internationally and not just within a single town, the events calendar can be a little confusing because there's probably more than one Abbey Basilica in the world. So when you're creating your venue, if you need to create a new venue and you can't find it, so here are some here, All Saints Episcopal Church in Chicago, and maybe there's more than one, but you notice that on some of these, the creators of these venues have tried to identify better where it is in this drop-down menu, so that you're not recreating venues all of the time. But you can see in many cases that isn't. So if I start to look for Methodist church, so here's a bunch of Methodist churches, right? And so I don't know where this First Methodist church is. Here's one that's the First Methodist in Boulder. So if I'm in Boulder, I want to make sure I'm choosing the right one, because I'm not going to see that information right here. So if you are creating an event, or not event, a venue, because you can't find one, you're adding a new event, I think it's really important to have some sort of defining characteristic of the title of that area. And we're going to use this little test town. You can click edit, which will allow you to then see the information for that venue. So I have not actually included other information for that, but let's make up some place that this is going to be located. So or actually, let's do this. Let's go back and let's use a previously created and oh, that was my own event. That's why I could fix it. So that was the issue. Okay. So anyway, you would have the ability to change when you're creating a new event, to change the address and the website for that. Sorry, I said event, venue, to change that information within this. And then I would just click update my venue. And now my venue has been updated with that information. I'm going to go back to my test event here, and I'm actually going to, so that we can see this a little better on the front end, I'm going to choose one of those. And once we publish it, you can see how that shows up and why it's important to have actually a physical address instead of something like Zoom or online or YouTube or something like that. Okay. And you can choose a single venue. That becomes a little bit tricky if you have a festival or concert that's in multiple places. In that instance, you might want to consider either making multiple events for the different spaces, or having some sort of definition of where things are going to be happening when in the description. We can't list multiple venues using this plugin. Organizer, generally that's going to be yourself, but it doesn't have to be limited to that. So I can choose Early Music America, but if I was presenting this with Amund Musik or multiple groups, I could add multiple organizers. And why is that important? It's important because with organizers, if I were to create one, for every organization that's listed in there, organizers listed in there, there's this other information that's been created for them, or that you will create if you're making an organizer that's new for the first time. So the name, the contact phone, if you want to have that, the website, and the email address. And you see that don't worry about, it will work as an email, but it won't be harvested by spammers there. So for every single one of these, and when we get to the front end of it, you'll notice that there will be the information for EMA, there will be the information for Musik in there. This is the external link. So if you have a link to that concert that's to a really pretty thing on your own website or something like that, this is the place to put that. It's not really for your individual organization's website, because that would be in the organizer. Otherwise, it'll be duplicated. So you can put it in the organizer, and then we'll see that web address. And then this is the actual event link if you have a separate event link, if you're not just using the events calendar, or if it's part of the festival and you want to put the festival website or something like that. Then we have just a few additional fields in case you want them listed. Otherwise, they'll disappear. Contact name, phone number, email, if you want to add those in there. If there are any additional costs, and we'll get to the cost field in a moment. So if there are additional costs beyond the simple cost field, then you can enter that other information. So maybe if there's a youth pricing or seniors or anything like that, or tiered seating, that kind of thing, you can change that. If it happens, if you want to list here the performers and faculty or faculty, you could list them there, or you could just include them in the description. But this gives you an opportunity to do that. And then if there's some kind of registration for the event, you can put that in there. So if it's a Zoom registration or a workshop registration, then that's the place to put that, because it will actually say registration link, and it'll be very obvious. Some people will also put it into the description, make it much larger, highlight it, make it a hyperlink, something to draw people to it. But there is a dedicated place if you would like to put that there. Here is where you can put the cost of the event, and you can add in any of your currency information that you need to. If you put in 0, it will say free. It'll actually put the words free in there. And if you leave it blank, it'll just go away. So if you don't want that at all, if it's not important, then you don't need to worry about that. So we're going to make this a free event. So we've gotten all of our information put in. You can just click submit event. You pray that your internet holds while that happens. And so now I can go and see my event. It says events submitted. And I could go and see my event there. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to go back to, just so we can see how this looks, I'm going to go back to my drop-down menu here. And I'm going to, it really doesn't want me to do that today. I'm going to click on events. And so now we see all of those events, those recurring events that I put in here. September 28th, the 30th, the 3rd, it skips the 5th, because I said don't do the 5th. So it's skipping over that date. And then it goes through October the 14th. And this is where you would see if you had other events scheduled as well. And you can either view an individual event on the calendar. You can edit the event, or you can delete all of them. If you, on this top one, it says delete all, that would delete the whole series. If you, for some reason, had to cancel or something like that, and you wanted it removed. The other thing is, it's not something that's on the public side, but if you do need to postpone or cancel, rather than deleting, if you want the information to stay there, you can contact me or contact just the EMA through the EMA website, and we can actually add. There's an add-on to this, where we can add a little indication that it is canceled or postponed, but it keeps the information and it's sort of tidy and it looks nice on the calendar. If you want people to know that it's been canceled or postponed, and rather than just deleting it, but that's up to you. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select Oh, I I see what happened here. I left it as a long event. So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to edit it because what I did, I'm editing a recurring event. What I did was I accidentally left this end date when I was demonstrating how it's not a good idea to have things be an individual event that go on and on and on. I accidentally forgot to delete that. So I'm going to put this back to the same date in a moment. There we go. All right. So now it begins and ends. And what's going to happen here is when I save this, it's going to update all of that information. And it's going to make all of those events go back to being just a two-hour event. Okay, I'm going to view these events. This is the recurring event. This is what it would look like. You can ignore the fact that this image clearly doesn't go with this, but here's my event title. So everyone can see that. It says the time. It says right here at the top that it's free because I put 0. It says it's a recurring event. They can click and see all of those recurring event titles, and it identifies it as a hybrid event. So this is what we call the event view. So if someone were to click into the event, this is what they see. Here was my description was going. Anyone who visits can add it to their Google Calendar, or do an iCal export. So they want to add it to their calendar that way. They can do that easily. You see here, we've got, because I've got this information for the event, it actually has located the actual venue here. So that if we were to click on this, that would actually, if I were to click on this Google Map, then that would take me to Google Maps if I wanted to map it. But here's the information. Here are the organizers. So if I were to click on just the one organizer, it's going to take me to the organizer information page. So there's the contact information that I would have put in otherwise. And then we've also got that for Abendmusik also. This is for this one particular concert. Here are my event categories. So the things that showed up, I didn't put any tags in, so it doesn't add any tags, and the other fields like registration field and all that stuff that I didn't enter didn't get put into there. So that's this view. Let's click this here, and you can see how the recurring events would pop up. So here they are now listed by the dates individually. Now, if I were to go to, I'm going to go to the calendar itself, and we can see what this looks like on the front end. And I'll come back and explain the way the browsing works a little bit more. But I'm going to search for that event just so that we can see. Oh, there are other people who have done this. Well, let's find this here. We'll do it this way. We'll just search for. Here we go. I didn't put test in the title. So here's how it appears just on the calendar. It's similar to what we saw before. But if I was navigating in the calendar, I would see this. And once again, it has that hybrid right on the front end because I indicated that rather than putting it as my venue. It shows the actual physical venue right here on the front, shows the time. And then this little thing tells me that it's a recurring event. And if I were to click on that, it would show me that recurring event view. And so this is how someone would see on the outside. You can also, if you're browsing the calendar, you can turn off the recurring events. So if you only want to see the next one that's coming up, you can turn that on. But that's your personal viewing choice. So just taking a quick tour here through the front end of the calendar. So on the front end, when you come to visit it, and we're not on let me just reload here because now it's confused. Here we go. When we come to it, it begins, when you first visit the calendar, it begins with the current day. This is in what's called list view. So it's just going to show chronologically in a list. I can go in here, I can search by the title if I would have had the right title name. I can choose locations. I can put in a location. So if I was typing in like Chicago or to see what was close by. And then we have these filters down here, like I just used before. You can look for certain organizers. You can choose by category. So let's see, I only want to see the upcoming concerts or those that have been identified at concerts. That's why it's important to make sure you're using the correct categories so that people can find you. Maybe I only want to see virtual events. I could choose that, and I could go here and say, here are all of the upcoming virtual events or those that have been identified as virtual. Or I could hide virtual events, kind of thing. I can go by city. These are cities as defined by the venue, state, province, and the country. So that's how you can sort that. There are also a few other views that if you would like to, you can switch to, which are the month view, which is just a larger calendar view. So here's an event that we just had this last week, but here are upcoming events, and you can see the ones, they still are indicate whether they're a virtual or hybrid event by these little indicators here on the side. So and know that those are virtual regardless. And once again, here's a little recurring, so you can always see that whatever view you're in. When you hover over them, might have seen that just there, you get a little preview of the event with the image and some of that basic information. If you wanted to see more, you can click the event or you can click read more. You even have in this one, there's a little $10 fee that was added to that. And similarly, we have day views, which is you can just, it shows you everything on a particular day. So there's only one event on that day. There are no events scheduled for that day. There's a couple of events here, or one event here. There's a couple of events on that day, so you can kind of page forward. The photo view might not be the best way, but these are in chronological order, and you can just see the pretty photos that have been included, and not all of them have. You're not required to have a photo. It does make it nicer looking through. There's a week view, which is similar to the month view. You can just see this week at a glance. I could even export all the events if I wanted to. And then the last one is, if you're curious, you can actually go here and see in the next, between the 17th and the 23rd, here's where all of the events that have locations, that have physical locations, are located on the map. And that changes, and this is not the only view of the map, it's just showing that because that's the extent to which they have been added. If there were some in California, it would be bigger. If there were some other parts of the world, it would show more of the world map. But you can kind of come through here and scroll around and get an idea of what's happening any place within the United States. So the last thing that I'll show, and I'll take some questions here, is if I were to go back to my events, then once again, it really doesn't like me to click that the first time. I can go to all of these events, and let's say I want to remove all of my events from the calendar. Then I'll just say okay, and it's still thinking here. Restart that. There. So now it has removed all of my events in the calendar. When you remove the events, it does not remove the venue, so you wouldn't have to recreate a venue next time. It doesn't remove your organizer information. It only removes that specific events, information specific to that event, the description and the virtual elements and the fees and all that kind of stuff. So that's the basics of how to use the web calendar, and I'm more than happy to take questions if anybody has questions about other things to use. Yes, Alice.
Hi. First of all, I apologize. I was late, so
that's all right.
I may have a question that you.
Sure.
So Arcadia Players is planning 3 virtual presentations, and since we want to charge or accept donations, is that just done by that registration link?
Yeah, you would just, you would just put that information there, or you could in the description field, you could say, purchase registration and then put the link there, or link the text in that. So that would be one of those. There isn't a separate button for purchasing. It would be either through the registration link. I think if you're going to use the registration link, you would want to make sure in the description, somewhere prominent, that you say, there's a charge for registration, use the registration link below, or something like that, so that they know that they need to do that ahead of time, so they don't come the day of the actual event and click the registration link and didn't know that it was to be paid for. That would probably be a good thing to have just in the description, is to say, here's the cost of the registration, and either tell them to click the registration link or go ahead and put the registration link in the description.
So if these are 3 consecutive weekends of a different artistic director candidate, can I make it as a recurring event and put in the description each of those with a link?
Yeah, you could definitely do that. And then maybe the actual, you could either leave the registration link part empty at that point and have the individual registrations on that, or in the description. That would probably be the best. And then if you had a space maybe on your own website that had the list of those things coming up, then in the events, the event URL, the event website, you could do that, and that way people could find the full event. But yeah, I think it would work fine to use a bulleted list and say, here's the 3 weekends, here's who's gonna be the director that weekend, and here's the link to register for this weekend. I think that would be very clear, and you could still use the recurring event.
Okay, so for a photograph, we probably want to use our one main photograph,
a more general one, or if you all haven't used it before, there's a wonderful, mostly free, you can get a paid version, but there's a great website called Canva, Canva.com, which is a great place to make your own images. It's mostly just drag and drop, and there are lots of templates, and so you could use something like that to maybe put an image of each of the directors or something, make one image that represents all the weekends. But yes, it would need to be one, unless you wanted to make three separate events, and then
use have one image. Candidate pictured on each one.
Yes, yeah, and that way, and I mean, it's kind of either way. I think sometimes when you do that, it can make it a little bit clearer, because the only thing is that if you have the 3 weekends, I suppose it wouldn't be that confusing for someone to see, if they were to look at the second weekend, to see the information about the first weekend. Even if it's past, they would just understand it was past. But it's kind of up to whether or not how important you think the having a different image is going to be, and that kind of stuff.
I have another question, but I don't want to. I want to let somebody else go first if you want.
No? Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
It's about, you mentioned about submitting news and press releases.
Yes.
And I have that printed out, so I have the instructions from a month or 2 ago.
Yep.
Is that a free service also, or is that? And then are there ads that are charged for if we want a banner or anything, or would this?
That is separate. So we have advertising on the website, which is a tile advertising. So you need to visit the advertising section of our website, and actually you can find that by going to About and Advertise with EMA. And so the advertising options are different. So we offer like a web tile. There are banners or tiles in eNotes, and then of course the magazine. Those are the three options. But those are a separate thing. And I had mentioned, I think maybe you weren't quite here just then, but in a couple of weeks, I'm going to do another session similar to this about submitting news and press release and using that form in the best way of going about doing that portion of it. But for any advertising, you can go to advertise with EMA, or if you have a question, you can just send it an email to ads at earlymusicamerica.org, and that will then you can have your questions answered that way.
Okay. Yeah, it's good. We just settled on the final dates, and it's starting the beginning of October.
Oh,
so.
Sure. Other questions? Yes.
Yeah,
Cecilia.
David, I have a question. Let's say my organization is organizing a festival around the harpsichord during a weekend, 2 days, 3 events on Saturday, 3 events on Sunday, same place. What would be the best way to advertise it? Should I put in each event separately, or is there a way to do that as a group? Or
you could do that. I mean, the main thing is that if you do it as a series or as a recurring event, it's going to have the same title. So if it's important to you that people understand what each event is differently by looking at the calendar, then you might want to do it separately. But if it was, say, called something like harpsichord weekend, you could put that in there, and then for the weekend, for that date, you could just include a series. By using the multiple events, you could include in individual times, because that could even be, you might just use a bunch of one time only sort of recurrences. So if I had the first one could be the 2 p.m. one, and the next one could be the 7 p.m. and that.
That's it. There would be one lecture presentation,
right,
other concerts and different. Okay, that's what I missed. Thank you.
Yeah, so in this case, so I would say, the first one maybe is an 8 a.m. thing on the weekend, and then the next one, I would say it's on the same day, but I would just choose a different time, and maybe the next one is at 11 a.m. Until noon on the same day, and then I could add another one later that same day, or I could make it the next day, using the add more events, as opposed to making them repeating events. That it makes more sense in that case. If it's at the exact same time, then making them a daily repeating or something like that. But you can sort of create a more individualized kind of thing by using that, add more events and using the once in the series, so that next event will just happen at that one time, and then the next one at whatever time you want. And then I would just say, the same thing as we were saying with Alice, in the description of the event, you could just put the schedule of the weekend. And then depending on if people could see the whole schedule, no matter which of the events that they clicked on. So if they were, because if someone's available at this time on Saturday, they may be looking at that time and only find that one event on the calendar, but then that would let them know that it was happening the next day as well or something.
Okay, great.
Question, David.
Sure.
Thanks for this. A question and an observation. Question is, in the event's description, it seems to me from when I've used this before, if I import a document that I've already typed up that has, quotes and italics and everything else, if I drop it in, that all goes away. Is that?
So that's just that's an issue of Word files, PDFs, right? Because when you copy directly from one, and especially if it has any rich text, then it carries a ton of code. Right. So what I think is easier is copy the text, and then if you switch to text, paste it in here, and then come back and go through, or depending on what you can do paste as text. You just click paste as text, and when I paste here, it's not going to send any of that. It won't send any of that, Microsoft code with it or whatever, because I do see that happens regularly. Yeah.
But if I want something bold, or if I want something in italics, I have to go in and do it myself.
Yeah.
After the fact. Okay.
It'll carry over, and sometimes it carries the stuff, and sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on what program it's coming from.
Okay. That's good. And the other comment was that several of us have asked about the recurring events thing. I'm wondering, I'm just going to make a suggestion that where is the where it says event series or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've come on here and said, oh, I've got a concert series, so I'm going to type it in and it's going to, you know, I can list multiple events. I'm going to suggest that you think about changing that to recurring event as opposed to get the word series out of there.
Yeah.
Because
unfortunately, that is a manufacturer thing, and
then fire them. Then fire
right.
them. Okay.
I wish, and it is a little bit frustrating because they refer to them on the front end, and maybe I'll just send them a message because they refer to them as recurring events, but then when you're doing it, it says event series.
Yeah, and I think that's so somebody coming to it fresh will try and punch in their concert series, and they're just going to be frustrated. So that's just a suggestion.
Yes, that's a great observation.
Yeah. So nothing else on my end. So I'm good. Thank you.
Wonderful. Any other questions?
No.
So I'll just say that if you have questions, if you ever have difficulties, please feel free to reach out. You know, generally we can sort of fix things or help you figure out the best way to represent what you're doing. Of course, this is the way that we choose we look through the calendar highlights for eNotes every single week. We try to do 1 or maybe 2 per day, depending on what's available. Sometimes the year it's super busy. Right now it's so not busy that if you're the only one who has an event on a day, you're probably almost guaranteed to be in eNotes. But we also try to in the eNotes highlights, when possible, we try to represent as large a geographic area because it would be really easy to just go through the highlights and only have stuff that's happening on the Eastern Seaboard. It would just be really, it could just overwhelm. So if you have an event, if that event doesn't happen to be highlighted that week, it's not a personal slight. Generally, it's because we're trying to make sure that we're representing as wide of a group as possible without overloading people in the newsletter with a ton of events to go through, and encouraging everyone to just browse the web the events calendar themselves to see what all is available, because there are regularly times a year where it's just jam-packed, but we want to help you find the best way of representing your organizations or your own performing series or whatever you're going to do in the best way. So please do reach out if you ever have any questions.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, well, thank you
Thanks
all for
much.
joining us, and I'll archive this on our YouTube channel. We'll put that also in the EMA tutorials, which you can find under Communicate and EMA website tutorials. We have a few other tutorials that are there. We also have a playlist series on our YouTube channel. That's our other tutorials. And so I'll update the one about the events calendar with this event. And in a couple of weeks, we'll do another one of these EMA Insights webinars about how to share your information through press releases and community news on the website to help more people see what's going on outside of individual events. And this is how we, to represent larger series or seasons and that type of stuff. So, well, thank you all for joining me, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Dave. Take care.
You all.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.